Powered by Righteous Media.
Welcome to Independent Americans. Welcome to episode 377. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. It is Wednesday, November 19th. I am coming to you from New York City, USA. And our guest today is my favorite senator that I've ever known. Jon Tester from the great state of Montana is back on Independent Americans. But before we get to him, his awesomeness, and lots to talk about, the news does keep on coming. The House voted to finally release the Epstein files 471-1. The only no vote being Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana, who was one of Trump's staunchest supporters. The Senate also moved it forward, but a bulk release of the files may not happen. We will cover that in the days to come. The Trump administration has said it's going to dismantle parts of the Department of Education. That's great. And key offices are going to be moved to other federal agencies. The Trump administration has been secretly working in consultation with Russia to draft a new plan to end the war in Ukraine. They've sent Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll over there, and we'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, Russia continues to hit Ukraine. Overnight, 10 were killed, 86 injured, emergency power outages across Ukraine as Russia launched another mass missile strike and drone attack. 76 drones, 48 missiles. The Ukrainians are continuing to stand strong and show us what democracy and vigilance is all about. And in the White House, Trump praised the Saudi prince and dismissed questions about Khashoggi's killing, which I think was disgusting and shameful on the highest level. That he's even hosting the prince, I think, is unacceptable, outrageous, and infuriating, especially for me as a 9/11 first responder. And his comments on Khashoggi are beyond nauseating and dangerous. He says he knew nothing, that MBS knew nothing about Khashoggi's murder, despite the fact that Trump's own CIA in his first term found that the Crown Prince had ordered it. I think Trump continues to show he has no respect and no honor. And between this debacle and the disgusting piggy comment he made to a reporter on the plane yesterday, I think it's never been more apparent than right now. And we should have no doubt, especially with the Epstein files looming, that Trump will go lower. Our children are watching, and so is history. So it's only a question now of when folks are actually going to call for his impeachment. I want you to watch that space. Also at the meeting, national security news, Donald Trump said he has agreed to sell the Saudis our most advanced fighter jet, the Lockheed F-35, despite concerns from many that China could gain access to pieces of our technology. Starbucks workers are still on strikes. The American military is back to blasting boats. Here in New York, NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, a moderate and very popular among the police, has said she will accept Zohran Mardani's offer to stay on as a top cop, which I think is a good thing for New York and for America. Meanwhile, a 25-year-old cop was released on Monday after being shot in the face during a domestic incident in Brownsville. It's flu season, but thankfully, it's also basketball season, and playoff football season is coming soon, and so is Thanksgiving and the great Jon Tester. And now, on this Wednesday, we're going to get you over the hump. Today is most definitely a time to stay vigilant. All right, and helping us stay vigilant, one of my favorite, maybe I think my favorite politician I've ever met, and I've met a lot of them. I don't even think he's really a politician. He played that part for a couple of years. He did it well, but he's the most down-to-earth elected leader I've ever met, the most real elected leader I've ever met. He worked with me for many years on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. I've said many times that I think we had no finer friend in the Senate for veterans and military issues than this man. He is now the host of the Grounded podcast, along with Maurizio Giorgio. He is the former Democratic senator from the great state of Montana, and my guy with a favorite haircut in the Senate and my favorite attitude. The great and powerful Jon Tester is back on the show. Welcome back, sir.
It's good. It is good to be with you, Paul. And the reason we work so well together is because we had a shared interest in doing right by our country's veterans. And you absolutely were a leader in that and fought hard for the folks who served this country and served in god-awful places and got exposed to god-awful stuff and got arms blown off and legs blown off and lives changed and, mental health issues and divorces and all that stuff. And you knew about it because you lived it. You came to Congress. You're one of the first guys I met when I got there 20 years ago, and you laid it on the line pretty clear because you're pretty straight shooter yourself. And we were able, truthfully, I mean, we were able to work together. We developed a level of trust, and we were able to work together to do things right for our veterans. And I always appreciate your input because it was no bullshit. It was straight up. And if you didn't like what I was doing, it was no bullshit, straight up. And if you did like what I was doing, it was no bullshit, straight up. So it's pretty good.
Well, we got a lot done, sir. And I think it's a harken back to when the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee and the House Veterans Affairs Committee were kind of an oasis in the partisanship. And now that's gone. Those places are as partisan as anywhere else. But we got a lot of really good work done. You always listened. You always spent time with our men and women that we brought to the Hill. I was on your podcast over Veterans Day and appreciate you having me on. And I talked about how I first came into your office when we had this idea for creating the Clay Hunt suicide prevention bill. And you immediately said, I'm in, I'm going to help. And a lot of folks in the Senate said they were going to help on stuff, but they wouldn't do the heavy lifting. They wouldn't get co-sponsors on board. They wouldn't show up for press. They wouldn't meet with people. And you put into work, man. And people knew that they could trust you. And I'm an independent. You're a Democrat. We had Republicans, but I think you were a populist long before the Democrats started growing beards and saying curse words, man. You kind of knew how to talk to average Americans before they started to have this soul-searching identity crisis.
Yeah, well, part of my problem, and I don't think it's a problem at all, but my wife and I took over the family farm in 1978. And if you work around equipment, you work around animals, every once in a while, you just got to cuss, get it out of your system. That kind of stuck with me because when you get to Washington, D.C., it's a lot rougher than working with those animals, working with those senators and House members and people from the administration. But I will tell you this: when I served, it was like heaven compared to the way it is right now. I'll tell you that. It's crazy. I just flew back yesterday from Washington, D.C., and I didn't visit with any. I visited with a couple senators. Let's put it that way. But didn't. Other than that, that was it. I visited most of them with folks that worked off the Hill, and they said it is a disaster. Companies are being extorted. The Senate and the House rubber stamp everything the executive branch wants to do. God, if Robert C. Byrd was alive, he'd be flipping over in his grave. Crazy. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense because truth is, I will say this, and I get trouble on my podcast, Grounded with Jon Tester and Marisa Giorgio, just for another plug, really quick. Thank you for doing that. But I get trouble on my podcast for saying these are good people, and people write in and say, "How can they be good people? They're not doing their job. They haven't read the Constitution. They don't know what Article 1 even says." And I'm starting to wonder, to be honest with you, because at some point in time, you've got to ask yourself, why do you serve in the United States Senate if you have no backbone? And Congress is there, Supreme Court is there, the executive branch is there to have checks and balances on one another because they're not perfect all the time. There's no checks and balances right now. There's none whatsoever. The president does whatever the hell he wants, whenever the hell he wants to do it. And Congress sits there on their hands going, well, maybe the courts will take care of it, or maybe he'll quit some point in time. He ain't going to quit. And if folks don't stand up for common sense here, because there's not a hell of a lot of it coming out of the administration, this country's in trouble.
I'm going to disagree with you when you say that, there are good people down there. I think there are less and less good people by the day and less honorable people. Part of what people knew about you is that you had honor, you had integrity, you'd stand up for what's right, you'd tell the truth, you were no bullshit. I feel like a lot of the honor is gone. I think about the folks like Senator Warner and Senator Dole and Senator Lautenberg, especially like so many of the World War II guys, Inouye, right? The guys that were there when you were coming in, they were in their later years, and women as well. They had honor. And they had both sides of the aisle, and they could work together. The GI Bill was maybe a great example of how we got so much done together, right? Bipartisan. We had Warner and Webb, Democrat, Republican, working together. I feel like the honor is gone, and I feel like the people who have honor are leaving. Jared Golden has been well reported. He's a Marine from Maine. He's a moderate. He's leaving because he fears for his safety. Let me ask you, how is life outside the Senate? It must be you can sleep better at night, maybe knowing somebody might not shoot you. What's it like for you going back to Montana to the farm? Because you're not going back to a mansion up in Beverly Hills. You're going back to a farm in Montana. Can you talk about what that's been like for you?
Well, it's been good. Look, I farmed the whole time I served in the United States Senate. We don't hire a bunch of people. It's my wife and I. And getting a little older now, so it's getting a little tougher. But the truth is that getting back to farm is what I've always loved. That's who I am. I'm a farmer. I served in the United States Senate for 18 years. I served in the Montana Senate for 8 years. I also served on the school board and served on soil conservation board and all those kind of things too. But I was a farmer the whole time. And getting back to the farm is I mean, it's truly is heaven for me. I was born lucky. I was born to the right set of parents that were doing the kind of things that I love. You hear baseball players say that or football players say that, but the truth is I feel the same thing about production agriculture, which is under attack right now, which is crazy. But at any rate, getting back to farm, getting out of that rat race back there, it's pretty nice because you get to think about stuff and you get to see stuff from a little different angle. I've got to tell you, when you're in the middle of that fishbowl and you're getting input and you're looking around, it's hard. I'm telling you, I kept farming for this very reason, but it's because I believe in a citizen legislature. But it's hard to keep everything straight, is what's going on now. Man, it's like that whole thing's on steroids. I mean, it's crazy. All these pardons that are coming out and they're tearing down the White House, and I mean the list goes on and on. The tariffs and not feeding children and old people. I mean, we could sit here all day long and talk about the bullshit stuff that's come out of this administration. But being on the farm is pretty damn nice. And getting back to Washington D.C. and seeing those guys, it's just miserable back there. I'm going to tell you, it is miserable. Even for the Republicans, I think it's miserable. And the only way they're going to get out of that miserable situation they're in is to start following their morals. And you're right. Maybe they've lost them all. Maybe they don't have any morals anymore. Maybe their morals are getting rich. I don't know. If it is, that's too damn bad, because this is the greatest country on earth, because we've had a great middle class. We've had people like you that have been willing to fight for democracy and our freedom. And it seems like all that stuff's going away.
We're going to get into a lot of top topics, but I don't want to breeze past a question I do ask everybody. Where are you, Senator? Explain to folks where you are and how are you? Like, how are you talking about these times? You're a wise man, you're an experienced man. You're talking to kids and grandkids and people who live in your area. Where are you and how are you and those
Yeah,
around those folks around you?
I'm better than I should be. I'll tell you that. We're doing very, very well. I'm in north central Montana right now on our farm. We flew yesterday, so a lot of the stuff you're talking about is going to be news to me, and I appreciate that. Got in last night at about a little after midnight to the farm, and it was great. And it was foggy for the last 30 miles, and I'm telling you, flat foggy. I haven't been a fog in my life for a while. I mean, it was like, holy shit, where's our turnoff? Because I can't see it. And so, that's where I am. This is home. You're right. I mean, this is not. This doesn't look anything like the White House. I'll just tell you that. This is very, very much a straight up home. It's a nice place. I had a guy come out and haul some hay here a couple of years ago, and I had to bring him through the yard with his semi to get to the hay bales, and he said, "That's your house?" And I said, "Yeah, that's my house." I mean, it's a nice house. It's 30 by 52. It's got one roof line because I have to shingle the damn thing. I don't want a bunch of roof lines. And it's got a little one stall attached garage, and it's got a basement and an upstairs. It's absolutely more house than we need now with all the kids out of the house. But the truth is it's home. I can sit down and watch TV when I'm not working, and it feels good. And that's the most important part. So that's where I am. And we'll be here for a while. We just got back from a trip to Austin, Texas, and went down to Tribune Fest and spoke there, and then went over to Mark Kelly's PAC weekend that he had, and I spoke there, and then I was in DC and had some meetings there, and then back home. So it's good. It's good, man. And the thing about it is that when I've served, and I'll just tell you this, don't cry any crocodile tears for me, but I'd get up at 2:33 in the morning to catch that flight out of Great Falls, Montana, and get into DC at 3 in the afternoon. That's what I did every Monday morning for 18 years. And man, I'll tell you what, I don't have to do that anymore. That's pretty good. I like that. I like that a lot.
I remember watching it, man. I watched the grind that you were on, and it was a grind, and it was also a testament to your integrity because you always went home. And then, before the sun went down, I feel like there'd be a picture of you on a tractor or on the farm doing stuff. But I think it also kept you grounded in a really important way. That's the name of your podcast. Your co-host said I should remind everybody to subscribe on Substack, which you should, because you got a big following. I saw that when I was on your show. Does your house have a basketball hoop outside? Because you owe me a basketball game, as we talked about on your show long ago. You and you challenged me to a game with your staff and my staff, and we never got that game. So is there a hoop on the back of that house somewhere?
Oh, here we go, big boy. I mean, my folks took this place over in the early 40s. One of the first things my dad was to build a wooden shop, and on the side of that wooden shop with a concrete apron with a few cracks that I know where they are and you don't, there is a basketball hoop. And if you want to come on my home court, it is absolutely an advantage to me, and we'll do that. Yeah.
It is on. It is on. I know you're looking fit lately. I know you were wrestling with Cory Booker up on Capitol Hill, but he doesn't have the jump shot that I do and the post game. So I know he played football at Stanford, but we're going to bring a little New York toughness. At some point, we'll get this game, and I'll look forward to it.
Booker's got athletic skills, but I think and he played tight end for Stanford, but damn, I mean, I'm telling you, I bet you can throw a pretty good cross body block in a basketball court.
I don't think he's mean enough. I think you and I got a little mean in us, so you can throw a pretty aggressive pick, but nevertheless, I'll look forward to it. We're going to put a pin in it, and I've always said we'll do it one day. Maybe we'll raise money for veterans. But with that, I want to pivot, if I can, into our top topic for today. I say if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. There's a lot to pay attention to. There's a lot to get you angry. But the top topic I want to dig into is, of course, the Epstein files. But I want to ask you, sir, about the Epstein files in a different way. When I came on your show, I've talked about how I think the shutdown was the wrong fight for the Democrats. And I think over time, I think that's going to be more true. We'll see. You may have a different opinion on that. But I think they got to pick their spots. And I feel like Venezuela, as an example, which I'm sure we'll get into, is an important one to fight on. The knocking down of the White House is an important one to fight on. When you don't have unity in the party, when you don't have a clear leader, when you don't have power, I think you got to be really strategic in the shots you take. And I feel like Epstein is a good one for them to take, the way it breathes through the House and breathed through the Senate. But I also feel like Trump is feeling so arrogant now and feels like he has such a propaganda machine that he's figuring that he can even spin out of this one. So let me ask you straight up, sir, is this one the Democrats can finally win? I was calling them the New York Jets of football, but the Jets have been winning some games, and it feels like the Democrats haven't been. Is Epstein, and I don't mean to break it down to politics, but I think it's really important. Can they win on this one? Can they get some momentum? Can they control the narrative a bit more than they've been able to in the past, where Trump has dominated the narrative? Is this one they can win on?
It's a great question, Paul. I will tell you, if we had a Department of Justice that was working for America rather than working for the people, I would say absolutely. And it wouldn't be winning. It would be the American people would know what transpired with Epstein. Because, by the way, taking advantage of little girls is not acceptable. Period. I don't care who you are. I said this on MSNBC the other night. I don't care if you're from Congress, head of a big corporation, president of the United States. I don't care if you're a gutter alcoholic. If you take advantage of little girls, you need to be held accountable, because that is flat unacceptable. I don't think there's any doubt. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. I've seen the pictures. I've seen what the president has done. And there are others, I'm sure, and it's probably cross-party lines, and they need to be held accountable. And if it was a Department of Justice that wasn't all about working for Donald Trump instead of working for America, I would say absolutely the Democrats can win. But let me say this. 48 hours ago, 72 hours ago, the president was saying, absolutely, you can't release these files. You can't vote for it. Him and MTG were having this big old scrap. And then a couple of days ago, he said, hell, vote for it. Now, he knew there was going to be over 100 Republicans that voted for it in the House, so I'm sure he wanted to pull victory out of the jaws of defeat. But they did. They passed it all but one person. You already pointed that out in your opening. Now it goes to the Senate. I expect the Senate will pass it. He said he's going to sign it. I expect he will sign it. So now what kind of games are going to be played? If there's an investigation going on, does that mean he's not going to release any of the information, only some of the information, only the information on Democrats and not on Republicans? You are absolutely right. For the sake of the American people, for the sake of women in this country, for the sake of little girls, for the sake of the next generation, Democrats have to be successful on this. They have to get the information out, and they have to show, if the information doesn't come out, how this is really bad for the country, because it is. What the hell happened to the Republican Party that was about morals, that was about family values? What happened to those guys? What happened to the Republican Party that was conservative? What happened to those guys? I mean, those are the guys I was raised with. I remember in the state legislature, I used to fight with the Republicans all the time about how we were going to spend money. I like those fights. Those are fights this country needs to have. I remember during Bill Clinton's term, they were talking about, oh my God, this guy's immoral. Look, look what he's done. And look, what he did was improper, no doubt about it. But compared to what's going on right now, it isn't even a blip on the radar screen. It's crazy. And so the Democrats have to be successful in this. They just have to be. Now, I will also say this, Paul. Democrats always overplay their hand. There was a good election a little over 2 weeks ago. It was a really, really good election. Election like I've never seen in my lifetime, quite frankly. And right after that, Democrats said, you know what? We don't want starving people. We fought like hell to get the insurance rates down. It didn't work. We're gonna work to get this government open again. And so they didn't overplay their hand. I think it was a smart move. I think the government shutdown, not so good, quite frankly, because we've got a president of the United States that wanted it. And it's going to be the same fight in January. But they've got to be successful on this Epstein stuff. It's got to be successful.
So let me ask you this. Because when you were when the leadership changes were happening, a lot of us in the veteran service community said Jon Tester needs to be in charge because we can count on him to get things done. He knows how to bring people together. He's moderate enough. He knows his stuff. But most importantly, you got to give the ball to a quarterback who can score, right? And we knew as veterans that you could get it done. And Nancy Pelosi has announced her retirement. The amount that she got done for us is tremendous. I will challenge until my dying breath anybody who wants to challenge her effectiveness. And I say that as an independent. I am not a Democrat. But Nancy Pelosi got shit done for us like nobody else. And when she said she was going to get it done, she got it done. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are not you and Nancy Pelosi. And they're facing a lot of infighting from within. They've got the radical left now. They got the rise of Mamdani and now folks like the mayor of Seattle. They're not tight on messaging. I think this kerfuffle that's going to happen today between some of the veterans in the Democratic Party and Hegseth around this illegal order video that you may or may not have seen, I think this is an example of how the Democrats are not tight. I don't think they were tight on the messaging. I don't think they have a strategy here. And I think that they're going to get whipped on it because if you're going to tell folks in the military that you have to resist an illegal order, they know that already. They know that and they will do it. The question is, what order are you talking about? Because no orders have been deemed illegal yet. And if that happens, if it's Venezuela or it's, martial law or something else, our troops know to stand up to that. So I think they're showing their stripes again, where they don't seem tight, they don't seem focused, they don't seem well led. Do you have confidence in this leadership team to be able to get this done, not just for Democrats, but for America?
I'm not in the caucus anymore because I'm not in the U.S. Senate anymore. I will tell you, I watched Chuck. He's got a tough job trying to get everybody from Manchin to Sinema to Bernie Sanders to Elizabeth Warren on the same sheet of paper. It's hard to do, and he did a pretty decent job of it. I think it's a different world now for Chuck. I think it's a hard world for Chuck. It's a no-win world for Chuck. Here's the issue, though, Paul. I don't know anybody else that can do it as well as Chuck can do it. And by the way, Democrats have never been good at messaging. We've always been lousy at it. There's some things we need to do to fix that. We've never done it. We've never been on the same page. It's been such a big tent that, quite frankly, it's hard to be on the same page. But here's the problem. If Chuck steps aside, and I'm not saying Chuck's doing a bad job. I think he's in a no-win situation, quite frankly. What I'm saying is, who does it? Who's there to pick up the ball and go with it? Who's got the respect of people within the caucus to be able to lead, and they will follow? You're never going to get the left of the party and the right of the party, I should say the left of the party and the moderate part of the party on the same page. It's just, I never seen it happen in the 18 years I was there. The government shutdown is a prime example. For some of these guys, they're raising a lot of money. It's scorched earth out there on the government shutdown. What they didn't realize is that people were goddamn starving to death out there, man. I mean, and we had a president who was okay with that. So you got to modify the way you're thinking. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I can pick holes in leadership all the time, but they got a tough job. And I just don't know anybody in the caucus that could do it, to be honest with you, right?
You know what it is? I look at it and it's like watching an old quarterback get lit up, right? And you can't throw like you used to, and the game's moving too fast, and you can't get the reads. And you and I love to talk sports. But it's like watching a 40-year-old quarterback get lit up. And what I am looking for as someone who is rooting for the Democrats by default, right? And because I'm not holding my breath for the Democrats to save us, but I want them to hold the line on things that I care about. Let's use Venezuela as an example. They need someone who can snatch the mic. And in this attention economy, they're losing the narrative. And we talked about Cory Booker. There's guys like Ruben Gallego, Slotkin. There is this new generation that know how to play the new game. Right?
Yep.
They know, especially the media game, the attention game, the social media game, right? And I feel like that's where Democrats are getting smoked, right? They're getting smoked on the field. You can see them. and they need to change quarterbacks, right?
No argument here. And here's what I would do if I was in Chuck's boots. I would take the people that know the issues in the military, for example. You brought up Slotkin, and there's a number of them, and say, guys, here's the issues. You know the issues. Go out and tell the American people what the hell's going on from your experience as somebody who served in the U.S. military. That's just one. If you're talking about housing issues, that's a different group of people. If you're talking about, whatever it might be, and delegate some of this work to other people within the caucus, empower them and move it forward. If I was going to say there was one thing that Chuck needs to work on, it's empowering the members of the caucus. The people who get elected, I don't care what party you are, they have a skill set. I guarantee you they have a skill set. You know this well. You want another sports analogy? If you got a good point guard, he can make everybody else on the team look really good. And not by scoring 35 or 40 points, by delivering the ball to the people who can do it in a position where they can score. And that's what Chuck needs to be. He needs to be more of the point guard. He doesn't need to be Shaq anymore. He needs to be Kenny. He needs to be able to deliver that ball to where it needs to do its thing.
I think that's so important, because I'm thinking back to one of the geniuses of Pelosi, was she knew how to pitch the ball and to who and when. And I go back to don't ask, don't tell, what you were around for, right? And I remember early conversations. I think she asked me for my advice. And I said to her, pick somebody like Pat Murphy, who was a combat veteran, who was a straight man, who was from a purple district, who could talk to working people, who could talk about national security, who wasn't a gay rights activist, right? Who could move Republicans. And however it went down, Murphy was selected to be that lead dog with others. And there have been other issues like that. But I don't see that casting happen. And Trump is doing it in reverse, right? He's throwing out Tulsi Gabbard, who used to be on that team. He's throwing out RFK Jr. He's using folks like Dana White and others to kind of amplify that message. And I think what I want to come to with you, because I think you're uniquely positioned, is you fought hard for veterans and you paid a price for it. You came out against Ronnie Jackson, who was nominated for VA secretary. Folks may not know this history. You asked the hard questions. He was unqualified, and he was ultimately, he resigned. He pulled out, right? And that was good for veterans. Trump never forgot that. And Ronnie Jackson never forgot that. And they came after you, and they said they were going to knock you out of the Senate, and they did everything they could to do it. And veterans need to know that you paid that price in part for us, because he was not qualified. But I told you when you were on my show last time, when you were in a re-election campaign, you might be better off running as an independent than you are as a Democrat. You're living in Montana, where you can see how toxic the brand is. Both of them are toxic, but especially in red states, in purple states, the Democratic brand sucks. And Mamdani's not going to help it. We also now see this rise of independents. Dan Osborne, Todd Achilles, guys we've had on this show that are veterans that are running in South Dakota, they're running in Idaho, they're running in Nebraska. There may be folks running in Montana. Can you talk about what you see there? I mean, if you were 25 years old, you might not be a Democrat. You might be an independent coming up nowadays if you're a farmer in Montana who wants to serve his community. I wonder if 25-year-old Jon Tester would be a Democrat.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, Paul. I'll just let you guys and let your viewers in a little history. So I'm a Democrat because of FDR. My folks would not, my grandfather said we would not have the farm if it wouldn't have been for the policies of FDR. During the 30s, things were bad. They were really bad. And FDR put policies in. Now, those policies have been put on steroids. And by the way, they need to be drawn back. Farm Bill isn't doing what it needs to do. It's tearing up family farms now. But when it was first put in, it had a plan and it worked. I married a lady that came out of a strong Republican family. I could have easily been a Republican when I got into politics, 40 years ago. But I remembered who was working for me and working for us. It was passed to me generationally. And that's why I'm a Democrat. And I still think it's that case. Do they screw up plenty? Yeah, they do. But the other side screws up all the time. I mean, it's crazy. The Democrats, is that their message? Yeah, it has been their message for the last 20 years. We're better than those guys. They're terrible. When in fact, they need to have a message about what they're going to do to lower costs, what they're going to do to lower housing, what they're going to do to make healthcare more accessible, what they're going to do for our military. We've got an all-volunteer military. How are we going to keep it the strongest military in the world? What we're going to do for our veterans who sacrificed this country. You get the drift. The list goes on. But I will say this, so that if I was running again, of course I'd run as a Democrat. I'm not going to do the Joe Manchin thing and say, this was the wrong thing to do. Because quite frankly, I think it's easier to affect change in that party than it is in the Republican Party. And if you take a look at what's going on right now with the president and everybody falling in line and everybody rubber stamping, I mean, I'm telling you, I couldn't go there. If Joe Biden was doing this kind of stuff, or Barack Obama, or Bill Clinton, or you name it, Jimmy Carter, I'd be going nuts. It's crazy. And they wouldn't be able to say, we're going to run a primary event against you. I'd say, fuck you. Go ahead and do it. This is crazy. And then none of them are doing it. Well, Tillis did it, but I think Tillis was going to retire anyway. But the truth is that none of them do it. And that's the problem. Selling F-35 to Saudi Arabia? Are you kidding me? This is the premier piece of military equipment that we have. If you take space out of the equation, this is the best of the best. Nobody in the world has anything that comes close to it. And we're going to give it to Saudi Arabia, the folks that organized the attack on Twin Towers. I mean, come on. Really? What, you got investments in Saudi Arabia? Is that why you're doing this? It's certainly not about national security, and it's going to make this country less safe. And once we lose that cutting edge military advantage we have, we are screwed. We're screwed. And people need to stand up, and they need to start putting pressure on these folks that are in Congress, because the president's going to do what the president does. And that's what he does. The only stop is the courts and Congress. And Congress has been AWOL, and the courts haven't been very damn effective on this. And I'm telling you, the F-35 stuff is beyond the pale for dangerous. Beyond the pale.
This is really important. I'm glad you brought it up, because it kind of got lost in the sauce around the Khashoggi comments and the other stuff. I mean, the Saudis do military exercises with the Chinese, right? I mean, this is a backdoor for the Chinese to get our most advanced weapon system possible. And I think this is it's actually a great segue into our next segment, because the White House is open for business, in my view. And this is an example of where he's given away our crown jewels, our technology, our defense prowess, our intelligence, not to mention our respect and our honor. But this is where I think it's really open season. So that takes me to our next segment that I want to focus on with you. We call it Below the Radar. I was looking at the dinner that happened afterward, right? Who attended Trump's dinner for the Saudi crown prince, right? And it was basically like a who's who of rich and powerful. It was Ronaldo, the soccer player, and also I would say with questionable ethics, right? Ronaldo, the guy who took the money and went to the Middle East, right? He wasn't Messi. He didn't go to Miami. He went to the Saudis, right? It was the head of Live Golf. It was Elon Musk. It was guys like Tim Cook at Apple and others who were willing to compromise with this president. Bill Ackman was there. Then you got, Brent Baer and Maria Bartiromo. You've got Senator James Risch. You got the head of Cisco. You've got basically all the Schwabs, the Schwartzmans, a who's who of the rich and famous, or really the rich, not even the famous, but the famously rich. And then there was a piece in the Washington Post today that said Tesla shareholders have approved a $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk. That's $100 billion a year, which is more money than every elementary school teacher in America combined. So is yesterday a really, really important threshold we crossed, where he's got his gold White House. He welcomed back a guy who many view as an enemy of America. He gave away a critical piece of defense technology. And this maybe is just the start. I've said he's put the pieces in place for Venezuela. We had Tom Bowman on yesterday. He said the table is set. I feel like Trump has set a lot of tables, and now he's serving it up. And yesterday was maybe the first example with this meeting, with this dinner, and with the trade deal that happens afterward. Is this a breaking point where the rich are eating the poor and we're all stuck outside?
This isn't the first time this has happened. I mean, it happened at his inauguration. It was the rich of the rich there. He brought in all the tech guys and they all kissed his ring. I mean, the truth is they're extorting, this administration is extorting those businesses. Look, for the first time in my lifetime, the federal government has got stocks in a private company. They own part of a private company. For those folks out there that have been bitching about socialism their whole life and not liking Bernie Sanders and AOC and all those folks, they just did what Bernie Sanders has been talking about forever. They did it. And it's not just one company, it's several. And they want more, by the way. They want this kind of stuff for any kind of low interest loan, anything out there. It is crazy. So this is an administration that works for the rich of the rich. The first bill they passed was the big, beautiful bill. What did it do? put more tax burden on middle class, lower middle class, and gave those tax breaks to the rich. Not just people who were millionaires or billionaires. These guys were tens of billionaires that got the money out of it. And look, that's not how you have an equitable tax system. That's not how you have a strong middle class. And by the way, the strong middle class has been the key to our democracy. And I've thought for some time, these guys don't have any respect for democracy. In fact, I don't think they even want to keep our democracy. This is incredibly important, by the way, especially for folks who have fought and had family members die for this country, for democracy, for freedom, for privacy. And these guys don't care. They don't care. And that meeting that they had yesterday with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia just further emphasizes they don't give a shit. They got theirs and they want more. And they're doing it. The 40 billion that went to Argentina. You think that's about the Argentinian government? Hell no. That's about investments, potentially by Trump, but certainly by his buddies that said, hey, you got to prop these guys up or we're going to lose some money. I mean, this is a government that does not have regular people's backs. They do not. And folks need to make sure in a nonviolent way that they make their voices heard and make them heard every day, every minute, every second.
I want to ask you to just maybe close the loop on this discussion and build on that in a way that you uniquely can. You've been a great advocate for working people, for farmers, for the poor, and also for poor white people, right? Which I think is often, Trump will make it sound like the only poor people in this country are immigrants and black people, right? And I think this is a really important time when a lot of poor white people have a lot of grievance and feel like they're getting a raw deal and feel like they're getting screwed. And many of them have gone to Trump and some of them have left Trump and many of them are politically homeless. That's a lot of the people we talk to on this show, the people who are independent, who say, fuck you to all of it. I just want a square deal. I want to be respected. But we're also on the cusp of maybe creating a new generation of veterans where we send the working class and the poor, number one, potentially into Venezuela, which could be a regime change war that the likes of which we haven't seen in, a couple decades here. And maybe even more dangerously, rich people don't join the National Guard. You know this, especially in rural states, right? You're joining the National Guard and you're getting deployed into urban areas to back up ICE and get sent into a hornet's nest. I think this might be kind of the biggest shaft that working and poor military folks have gotten since Vietnam. Like to stick you in the middle of this, something you didn't sign up for. You signed up to fight the bad guys and defend America, and now you're backing up ICE in Portland or in Chicago. I want to just ask you to sound off on that part of it. Because if Trump expands his military operations, which he plans to do, I keep saying the most important story in the world is that Trump can do anything he wants with the most powerful military in the world. That means working class and poor men and women, our sons and daughters. Can you talk about that, please?
Man, I don't know where to start, Paul. I'll just tell you. So I'm going to start here. They're taking away health care from people who need health care. They're taking away food from people who need help buying food. Those aren't rich people. Those are folks that, quite frankly, are trying to bring themselves up in society and need some help doing it. Otherwise, they'll be homeless. Otherwise, they'll die. And quite frankly, that's number one. Number two, he's dismantling the Department of Education as we speak. I happen to be someone who believes that public education is damn important. And it's one of the ways you can lift yourself up in society is going out there and getting a skill, getting a trade, getting educated, becoming an entrepreneur, whatever it might be. It's one of the ways he's dismantling all that. So those opportunities are going to go away, quite frankly. And they've been attacking public education for 25 years. I don't know why. It ain't perfect, but let's fix it instead of tearing it up and making kids go to religious schools or making kids go to a private school that parents can't afford. Okay. There's that. In Montana, the folks who serve at the highest rate in our military are Native Americans. There's a reason for that. Number one, they believe in our country. Believe it or not, they actually believe in it. And number two, that's where the highest rate of poverty is. That's how they get out of poverty, is they serve in our military, and then they can get their education paid for. They can get some health care benefits. All that stuff's being undermined as we speak, by the way, and they can move the ball forward. And then you see a situation where they're going to give tax breaks to the richest of the rich. They put tariffs on people. Who pays that? It's the biggest tax increase in this country's history. And he continues to get away with this stuff. Now, the Supreme Court might rule against his tariffs, which would be a blessing for him, because if they continue, there's no way in hell Republicans win in a year. If the Supreme Court takes it off the table, there might be a chance. Okay. But these policies are just horrible, and they're all focused and taking away rights and privileges and opportunity, more importantly, for poor. Now let's talk about the Guard. There is no doubt the King's marches were on. Love them, hate them, I don't care. But they were waiting for somebody to screw up so they could drop some guardsmen in there and just rattle the hell out of these people. I remember Kent State. That was a big damn deal, by the way. And we don't want that happening again. I'm just telling you. You don't want to turn your own military on your people and have them lose lives. That is crazy. But the truth is, he wants that. Here's the upshot that I don't like. We got F-35s going to Saudi Arabia. I don't think we're paying any attention to China or Russia or North Korea or Iran. I don't think we're paying any attention. And we do pay attention to Russia. It's about how you undermine the Ukrainians who are actually fighting for the democracy that we've got because they want to be like us, and we're moving their own direction. So people need to speak up, man. They just need to. This is really dangerous stuff, man. When you're tear gassing neighborhoods and you got ice coming out of helicopters, and then you got guardsmen used not in the way guardsmen are typically used, but for police protection, while you undermine programs that help police become more prepared on the streets. Everything is working backwards. And I don't say this because I'm paranoid. I want Trump to be successful. Christ, this is the greatest country on earth because we've had good presidents that were moral and actually believed in democracy. I'm not sure that's the case now. I'm just not.
Well, you are a voice of reason. You always bring common sense and guts and a groundedness to everything. You represent Montana values, but the best of American values too. And that's why I've been so grateful to have you on this show here. We're going to end this on a positive note. We're going to come around third and come home and end with something good. Now, you are good. Anybody who's listening today can see why I miss you in the Senate, why America should miss you in the Senate. But every show we end with something good. And speaking of poverty, speaking of people who pick themselves up by the bootstraps, a lot of folks may not have seen this, but Haiti is going to the World Cup. And their soccer team didn't even have a single home match. There's been gang violence there. They had an assassination of their president. 80% of the capital is controlled by gangs. The national stadium was taken over by gangs in 2024, and they haven't played a home match since 2021. Against all odds, they have qualified for the World Cup for the second time ever. I think that's a great accomplishment. I mentioned yesterday Ukraine might qualify as well, but that's a world stage that can bring tremendous visibility, not just to Haiti, but to countries like Haiti and to underdogs everywhere that we're always going to root for here on this show and in America. So that's my something good for today on this Hump Day Wednesday. Senator Jon Tester, what do you got? What's something good?
Well, I was going to say, earlier in this program, I said it was foggy last night, and that's a good sign because that means we're going to get moisture here in about 90 days. But that's pretty selfish and somewhat specific to me in north central Montana. But it's been very dry, very windy. It's been crazy dry here. It's nuts. But I'm going to tell you what I think is good, and this is good because I think it's good. The University of Montana is playing Montana State University at football. We don't have pro football in Montana. This is where it's at. This is our Super Bowl, truthfully. And I'm going to tell you, you got people that root for Montana State University that hate the University of Montana, and University of Montana people hate the Montana State University. So you want to talk division in politics? It's there. And when it's on a football team, you got half the stadium is screaming at the other half of the stadium is screaming at the referees and screaming at the other coach. And all that stuff is going on. But in the end, one of those teams is going to win and one of those teams is going to lose. And everybody in that stadium, when that team that wins goes off in the playoffs, they're going to be rooting for that team with damn few exceptions. They're going to be rooting for that team to do well. And that's what has made America great. We can all fight and we can all argue, but we all need to come together. And that's why it's important to stop this damn division and bring people together so we're all working on the same page. And I'm going to tell you, I think that's the good thing.
That is a very good thing. And you are a very good thing. I'd be on your football team anytime. I'd help out on your farm anytime I would go. I've never been to Montana versus Montana State. That's on my bucket list. Army Navy's coming up too in a couple weeks. We'll be covering that. But I love that spirit. I love that reminder I love that sense of community that you have been building on in your many years of leadership in Montana and nationally. You're a role model, sir. And I think that's really, really important, especially in times like this. And I'm kind of excited for you to be out of the Senate because now the handcuffs are off. Can I ask you to share the story the other day when there was the vote? You said that a guy was giving you an earful, and I think you were in an airport. He called you something. Can you share?
Well, I had to give the dude credit because, quite frankly, he was an asshole. But uh, I'm cutting a video. It's been several months ago. I'm cutting a video for an outfit that I'm trying to help get money out of politics. And I get done, and the guy looks at me. He's about 35 years old. He says, I'm glad you lost. Well, this is in the Minneapolis airport. And I said, Are you from Montana? He says, Yeah, I'm from Billings. I said, I'm glad I'm lost too, because I have to represent people like you. And to be honest with you, I'm about representing everybody. But assholes are assholes, And then he started talking about the deep state. And I turned around and said, I'm the deep state, Trump's the one that's not releasing the Epstein files. You want to talk about deep state? I mean, Jesus, really? I mean, so it's it's crazy, but I don't
You
expect
also
it.
told me a guy called you up and said he was pissed off about your vote.
Well, I told the wrong story. Yeah, yeah.
No, you told. These are both good stories. These are both good stories.
I had a guy call up the house, and we weren't around, so I pick up the messages, and the guy goes, I really despise the fact that you voted to keep the government open, and I'm going to do everything. This happened like a week ago. So I'm going to do everything I can do to defeat you in the next election. I normally don't respond, but I had to. So I had his number, so I called the dude back because the number comes up, and I said, so you need to wake the fuck up, because the truth is that I ain't in the Senate anymore. I didn't vote, and you're a year late if you're going to take me out. I got my ass kicked a year ago, okay? And so, what could I say?
But I think it's important. It's an insight into the time. It's an insight into what you got to deal with when you're in leadership. But I also think you're a straight shooter and you're a great role model and you're a true patriot, sir. I'm honored to work with you on issues. I'm excited for you to have the handcuffs off to be able to really say whatever you want, because that's going to be good for America. And in many ways, we're going to need you now more than ever.
Well, thanks, Paul. And back at you, buddy. I mean, this is a mutual admiration society. I appreciate it. You've always been active. You've always been doing shit that makes a difference. And you're still doing it. And I really appreciate it. I think that you're one of those guys out there that really is somebody who can influence people's thoughts. And I just ask you to keep doing the good work, because it's work that needs to be done.
Well, we will. And that basketball game will happen at some point, and we will record it, and we will raise money for veterans in Montana or something good like that, right? We could be the halftime show at the Montana versus Montana State game.
There you go. And then we can go to the hospital because I won't be able to walk, but that's okay. It'll be a worthwhile endeavor. Okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, Senator Jon Tester, honored to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Folks, follow Senator Jon Tester on all social media. Check out his Substack for the Grounded podcast. Follow his podcast. I was on it last week. Honored to be there. Go check it out. He's speaking truth to power and breaking it down as only he and his co-host Maritza can. It's really, really good stuff. And we are daily now. We are good stuff. And we're trying to bring you more of it. So follow us. Look for us on all the social media platforms. Go to independentamericans.us for more. Get the merchandise. You can wear it at the Montana State game. And America might be more divided than ever, but here at Independent Americans, we're bringing folks together, trying to add light to contrast the heat. And if you're among the 50% especially that are independent, or you're independent curious, you're in Montana, you're in South Dakota, you're in Florida, I don't care where you are, this is your home and you are welcome here. Our independent movement, we believe, is the hope for the future. Country over party, people over politics, light over heat. If you enjoyed this episode with Senator Jon Tester, please share it far and wide and invite others to join us and declare their independence. And stay vigilant, my friends, because eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. It's a price that Senator Jon Tester has been paying for decades now, and I hope he inspires you to do the same. And remember, the hope that he also brought you is the oxygen of our democracy. And know you're not alone in your vigilance. We're all in this together. Stay vigilant, America. And good luck to Montana and Montana State. I don't root for ties, but I'm rooting for a great game. Stay vigilant, America.
Powered by Righteous Media.